Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Daily Healing Journal, where I'm sharing my healing journey in real time with all of you. So, today we're going to talk about staying in your own lane on your side of the street. A lot of times when we're going through rough patches, it can be confusing. It can be a little bit hard to understand where we belong, especially when we've gone through trauma or abuse or gaslighting or anything that you have just felt confused in any way, shape, or form. And to avoid sort of getting off track, a lot of times I just go back to that serenity prayer. Okay, so what is in your control for real? And sometimes we really have to put ourselves in check and ask ourselves, okay, what is actually in my control? Truffles, come here. So, and sometimes this can be really confusing, especially if you're in the habit of feeling like you need to control your surroundings and people in your life because maybe things have spun out of control and you've been scared. And I in my past have found myself trying to correct other people's bad behavior and trying to say, hey, look, this is really bad and you're going to regret this and our whole life could be ruined. Let's give drunk driving for an example. That's something that if you're, close with this person and your finances are tied up with this person and your future is tied up with this person and they keep going and doing things like this, it scares you, right? And the hardest part of situations like this is that the more you try to correct, and I learned this the hard way, the worse they're going to get. And it's almost as if they retaliate. And that's because you're on their side of the street. And this is where it goes back to before you introduce these people into your inner circle, before you bring them into your life, you have to remember, do they align with your value system? And now that I'm looking back, the answer to a lot of the people and situations that I was surrounded with, the answer to that is no. And I see the good in people to a fault. And I was so worried about other people and concerned that they were going to get hurt or that they were going to hurt someone else or they were going to do this, that, or the other. And you just have to tune that out and go, you know what? That person has to do what they're going to do. And if they're doing things that don't align with your value system, then that's when it's time to take a deep, dark look on this is heavy. And it means looking into the darkness. And it means owning that there's darkness there that is not for you. Learning these things is something that I think everybody should learn, and I wish I had learned sooner. Okay. The other thing to remember is when I say stay on your side of the street, it doesn't mean just stay there. It also means cleaning up your side of the street, which is what I'm doing. I'm taking accountability for my own behaviors, and it makes it harder to actually be around people who have not done the same thing. And that's where I'm at now. Once I get to the other side of this healing process, I believe that I'll be able to be around people and I'll be able to not react as much, right? And so that's sort of where I'm at. And I can feel it now when I'm starting to feel like, boy, I'm around a situation that's not working for me and this is pushing me off of my journey of healing. I have to get back to my side of the street. It means that I'm starting to drive and be on somebody else's side of the street, and that is not part of what I'm doing right now. And nor should it ever be, but this takes practice. These practices, staying on your side of the street and keeping your side of the street. Now, I know that this can be really hard, especially if you see something, whether it be on the news or in friendships or whatever, and you're like, no, because maybe you've already learned that lesson. And you have to remember that everybody's learning lessons on their own terms. And I've talked about this in other videos. And you can't rush somebody to understand something like you do. Just like you can't be rushed to understand something. People could have warned me about some of these people in my past. They could have said, you better be careful, he's a liar. You better be careful, this, that, the other. You better be careful, she's not a good person. It doesn't matter. All of these things, people could have tried to tell me. And you know what? I don't know that I would have listened. Maybe, but sometimes you're dealing with either master manipulators or people who you still have lessons to learn with. Some people come into your life for a short time, most people. And so this is something that I've had to accept and understand. So getting back to the core values and also being willing to hack your own behavior. Why am I acting this way? Why am I saying this? And I'm still learning how to do this. And that cognitive behavioral therapy really helps. You don't have to have any kind of mental health disorder or mental illness or any problems in your life at all to do this. This is something that everybody should really try to do because it makes living your life not only more meaningful, but it helps you sort of glide through it instead of it being all chaotic. It doesn't mean that you're not going to run into problems. And I want to do a video on this altogether, but just to touch on it quickly, when we run into problems and we run into things that challenge us, that's when we grow. And I'm learning to lean into the challenges. It's not about avoiding problems in life, but lean into them and just remember that, pretend like you're on that road, right? And you're driving. That feeling if you're about to pass a car, that means you have to go into another lane and then around that car. And that makes me nervous, okay? So I actually don't do that a whole lot. Plus, living in the Keys, there's not many places you can do that. But I'm just saying that feeling of like kind of going in somebody else's lane, even if it has that passing lane, right? Or maybe it has the dotted yellow line that says you're allowed to pass. There's something about going into the other lane of oncoming traffic, even if there aren't cars or you see them way off in the distance, that sort of makes our heart pound. And that's because you're going, if you're busy looking everywhere around you, but you're not focused on the road, you're gonna crash, you're gonna drive off the road, okay? And the rear view mirror is there for a quick glance. It's not there to completely, redesign how you're staring at the road. That's just not what it's there for. So, and sometimes I like to use the analogy also of sports because, I think that when people, let's just say, football, for example, if those players on the field or any athlete on the field were more concerned about the audience and the cheering and the announcers, the cheerleaders, the other people, other distractions, and they're not focused on the ball or the whole point of the game, they're in deep trouble. And, you hear athletes talk about this. And as a singer, the discipline that it takes to sing actually is very similar to being an athlete. And when you are learning how to professionally sing, they do take a lot of practices mentally and then some even physically because of the muscle region around the vocal folds that compare so much and align so much with athletes. And so this is something I'm going to touch on more in other videos. But again, you have to play your part, whether you're part of the orchestra or you're on the road and there's a bunch of cars, or you're an athlete. You have to remember to play your part, and only you know what that is, right? Other people can tell you all day long how to do your job and how to live your life, but only you are really gonna know what's best for you. So don't worry about telling other people what to do. And you know what? When they tell you what to do, same thing, okay? And I stop myself, but I'm like, you know what? This person still has lessons to learn, right? I still have lessons to learn. I think we really need to remember that and be mindful of staying on our side of the street in our lane, all right? And while we're there, keep it clean. Try to keep it clean. It's gonna be harder to drive down your side of the street if there's a bunch of garbage and debris, right? So it requires that. So anyway, I hope that helps you stay focused, and I hope that helps you have something to think of in an analogy. And at least for me, that's what works. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right, bye-bye.